Don't get me wrong. I see smoke. I don't see a house burning down.
And then I feel really alone with everything.
Because I have no model
The son of an alcoholic.
of successful relationships and have him like
Thanks for letting me be here for you.
Did you get hurt, Teale? You come here to me.
Welcome back. Come here to me, viewers, listeners. It's Figs here.
And Karen.
Good to see you, Karen. I was going to say see everybody, but I cannot see anyone other than you.
Good to see you.
So I had a question recently from a client. I'm not sure you can help me frame this, Karen, well, about what do you do when you're being triggered repeatedly in your relationship in a way that feels very similar to how you were mistreated / abused, not loved the way you needed to be when you were a kid, right? Like, how do you know when to be empathic towards your partner? They must be talking to me this particular way or acting in this particular way that certainly seems to be similar to how I was treated as a kid, if not the same. How do you know when you should work the system? Like we do, right? And understand where the person's coming from. How are they hurting that they're talking that way? And what's the impact on me? And how am I seeing them? How do you know when you should work the system versus this isn't right for me and I have a right to choose to say no and not accept this behavior that I'm experiencing as being really harmful for me?
Right.
Is that a good way to frame the question?
Yeah, I think so. Where is the line between I can have empathy for this because I understand where it's coming from in them, their insecurity, their wound, their pain, their triggers, versus this is unacceptable as a way for me to be treated, and I've made a decision that I can't be in this relationship anymore because I'm not willing to be
Totally.
Whatever this is. Yeah.
How do you make that decision, right? Mm-hmm. So one thing you were saying, Karen, that I just before, in the green room, the digital green room, right? I like what you're saying about you feel everybody has the right to make that determination for themselves first, right?
For sure.
Say more about that, what you mean.
Well, I just think that everybody's got their own personal red line of this is not acceptable to me. I'm not willing to be treated this way. This is too painful. This doesn't feel good. I just don't like it. I just don't like it. And I don't want to be in this relationship. And I feel like as a clinician, it's our job to hold and teach the whole cycle of what's happening and help people understand all the layers of what's going on. But ultimately, it's their job to know if it's a yes or no inside for them, and that we need to respect their yes or their no at whatever point they may come to it.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree with you more, right?
Yeah.
And, of course, right? And in an ideal world, minus certain circumstances, right? Look, if you're if there is domestic violence or a huge risk of domestic violence, if the degree to which you're feeling traumatized is so beyond your window of tolerance that you cannot function, for sure, you got to do what you got to do to look after yourself, protect yourself, make the right decision for you, right? So let's be clear. Absolutely. Now, let's say that there's somehow we're not in those circumstances that, look, studying what's happening in our relationship for us together and both of us individually is just not viable because of how painful it is right now this second. In an ideal world, we would be able to help a couple study, be curious about, what is it that is happening inside of me just almost by definition, if I'm this triggered by your behavior today, on some level, the past is merging with the present for me. It's like, it's merging with the way I was hurt in the past. So I'm not only feeling threatened because of what you're doing and saying right now, there's some multiplier effect happening that I have all the wounding from my past inside me.
Yeah.
And so the degree to which I see you as a threatening person is this mixture of the way you are actually threatening right now, mixed with the way I was in the company of someone really, really threatening when I was little, or in my last relationship, or in high school, or whatever it is, right? And then, of course, the same is true for the other person, that the degree to which they seem, like in this case, let's say angry or mad or hot fused, the degree to which they're doing that has something to do with the present moment, some present moment trigger, but also has a lot to do with the way they were in the presence earlier in their life with not being met the way they longed to be, that was really difficult and traumatizing for them. So their reaction to this present moment issue is being magnified, multiplied by the past, even more than the present moment.
Right.
In an ideal world, we could hold the couple's level of traumatic activation and need to do something. I have to say no, or I have to just surrender, or I have to just placate, I have to fight for my life. In an ideal world, we could carve out a safe space and hold the walls of that safe space to do that study. Mm-hmm. And to your point, Karen, listen, that each individual needs to, has the right to say, study smuddy, right? No, I don't care. It just doesn't work for me. No.
Yeah.
It's great. I like that. And by the way, if I can add to it, here's the way I think about this. And I don't know if this is the right, technical psychological language, right? And I think that there are two primary developmental steps that need to be able to happen for someone in love and relationship. And let's say, if I was as a child, I'm with a parent that was having huge, big reactions, angry reactions. And it's not like I could say no. They would have probably been more angry with me, and I wouldn't have gotten dinner. I still had to sleep there for the next 14 years of my life, right? No is finding my no, asserting my no was not an option.
Right.
And that got incorporated into my whole personality, that I can't say no when someone is angry. At some point in that person's life, now that they've grown up, before they're going to be able to be in a loving relationship that they don't have to say no or don't have to just placate, they're going to have to find their no in a particular relationship. Mm-hmm. The second one is, at some point in their life, they're going to be with someone and look, I'm getting scared in the same ways I used to be scared before when I was a kid. But for flip's sake, I don't want to have to just placate or say no. I want to be able to stay in a relationship, even though it's scary and traumatizing for me. But I'm with someone that I can tell them and they can care about my feelings. And I do get scared a little bit because they get mad. They stump their toe and they go, for fuck's sake, my bloody toe is sore. And I go, oh, Jesus, no, it's happening again. But I tell them and they go, look, I get it. I see how I scared you. And then I'm able to say, look, I understand you can't even stump your toe without me being terrified that the worst's going to happen again. And they hold each other and kiss each other in the kitchen. Mm-hmm. Right?
Exactly.
So I want them to be able to find their no. But I also one day hope they can live in a relationship where they will get scared. It is going to look like it's all happening again. Mm-hmm. Right? So in the particular case, that came up, look, I don't know if I agree with you, is someone has to be able to say their no. And then my hope is one day that opens up the possibility for them, either with this partner or in a future relationship, that they can live inside a relationship that isn't perfectly safe. Because I don't know if perfectly safe is an available outcome in love for someone that's gotten really hurt in the past.
Right, but that doesn't fully acknowledge what I think part of this person's question was, which is, what's the degree of severity that somebody who's in their wound is allowed to inflict upon their partner, and then you have to sort of take it within the frame of like, oh, they're doing it because they're hurt and because they're wounded, and if you guys could get into this safe space, you could understand why they're behaving in this way.
Yeah. Well, look, yeah, but here's the thing, right? Here's the thing about that. Let's again reiterate: domestic violence, risk of domestic violence, blocking exits, like using your voice to a point that it's frightening someone else. They're not acceptable, right? There's some things that are just definitively not acceptable. Coercing people, controlling people with financially, right? Like there are things that are definitively under in any, like I was going to say, making people do weigh-ins to control their weight, right? There are things that are definitively just not acceptable, right? Definitively not acceptable, right? Under any circumstances, right? Like, and it wouldn't be safe to study your system if there's domestic violence or a risk of domestic violence, right? The truth of the matter is it's not an isolated thing, right? It's never an isolated thing. So let's say that somebody hits a place of frustration where they yell. They don't like threaten to hit someone. They don't hit someone. They don't block exits, right? They're not coercing, but they do yell when they have felt a place inside them of being disempowered in their life and not being heard, not being considered. And when something in the present moment triggers that, it hurts really badly. They're back in the disempowered, not respected, not seen, not heard. And what comes out is, for fuck's sake, right? And that triggers in the second person, their partner, oh my God, I'm about to be in the place where I'm going to be on the receiving end of tremendous anger. That is enough of a memory of the tremendous anger I received, and it was so scary and so painful, right, that I have to fight, flight, freeze, placate, right? I got to survive, right? But the way I fight, flight, freeze, placate tells the first person your feeling of not being respected, of not being seen, of not being valued, that it's not okay for you to be hurt, just got magnified. Right. It got magnified in an instant because they were hurting, and the reason they went, for fuck's sake. And then the other person got scared, and they go, look, please, like, it's not that big of a deal. Well, you just told the other person, I get you're traumatized, it's valid. You told the other person it is not okay for you to ever feel not seen, not heard, not valued. And it's just not okay. So they're now re-traumatized too. Mm-hmm. And so now they say, for fuck's sakes. They go, for fuck's sake, for fuck's sake. So the second person now is like, it really is happening again. I'm back with my angry father. This is completely unacceptable. And so now they tell the person, you need to control your reactivity. Right? Well, now the first person is re-traumatized.
Right.
They're re-traumatized. They're back in a place. They're like, I am completely powerless. I'm not allowed to have an experience. I'm not allowed to express. So this is the tragedy. Both those people are being re-traumatized, and both of those people are not being loved by each other.
Right.
Look, everybody has the right not to study it, but please, God, I think most people could end up with the possibility of being able to navigate a path through with each other if we could somehow, and it's going to be messy. Mm-hmm. It's going to be messy because if I'm that woman, I will, for the rest of my life, every time a dish drops in the sink, I'll be looking at my husband, right, in this case, and I'm going to be going, oh, Jesus, is he about to be angry?
Right.
Right? She's going to be scared for the rest of her life.
Yeah.
But it's primarily what happened with her dad, not with this guy. And look, whatever happened to this fella that he doesn't seem like, right, I'm heard, considered, I'm not valued, I'm never good enough. He's going to be re-triggered every time she goes, oh, don't have an angry reaction. It's like, oh my God, like, so they're both inflicting what lands on the other person as trauma, right? Now, let me go one last thing. And I know we've said this, but this is a more serious topic. Look, people are really trustworthy. If someone is hitting you in the face and you say, this is not acceptable, your opinion is really trustworthy. If someone is blocking your exits when you have a fight because, no, we need to keep having this discussion, and you come and you tell me that's not acceptable, your perspective is really trustworthy, right? But look, the other 90%, I don't want to put an actual percentage of fights that couples are having in their relationship, each individual member of the couple's perception of what's actually happening between them, I'm sorry, and I know I'll get in trouble for this, their individual perception from their first person point of view is not very trustworthy, right? So we have 10% of the time, let's just use it, where, look, yeah, you are being punched in the face. For God's sake, I would trust your perspective. This is not okay. Right. But the other times where, like, look, my partner dropped a dish and they go, for fuck's sake, fucking bullshit. Who put this dish there? And everyone in the family holds their breath. And I'm like, oh my God, it's happening again. And then they go like, hey, don't be so angry. Like, it's just a dish. And then the person gets even more angry. I'm sorry. I don't trust that your perception of this present moment is trustworthy, because I think it's being colored by so much trauma from the past.
Right.
And if you could join me in that temporarily, we could get to a place that between you and your partner, we could heal not only this present moment for both of you, but actually go back and heal the pain for both of you when you were little from the past as well. And then have this beautiful path forward where two scared people could be together forever.
Yeah. Forever.
There's my speech. Yeah. Well, yeah. Tell me what comes up for you, Karen.
Well, I mean, I think that's great. And I just, just being a couples therapist and doing the work, realizing that whole process from that place where they're terrifying each other to the place where they're, loving each other forever is like you said, it can be very messy and it can take time and there can be setbacks, and that's just the reality of it. And there might be moments in there where you're going, I can't deal with this. I can't do this. And what I like about what you're saying is, like, it's our job to hold both somebody's right to know what's true and what they need, but also this very, very strong frame and perspective that we come from with EFT, which is that there is a way forward, even if two people are triggering each other so much that it feels impossible, that we can make it safe enough, at least in the therapy space, for them to be able to get through that triggered reactivity to a more vulnerable place and be able to share what's really going on from there and have it be received and have that start to create a healing that's not possible for them otherwise, and start to see each other as the wounded little boy and little girl inside that they really are.
Exactly. Or wounded two little boys or two little girls. But in this case, right, the question is coming from like a man and a woman, a husband and wife, right? Okay, that's all true. And I love that. I love it. I love it. I love it. And the one thing I'd add, look, it's not just the safety in the therapy sessions. And I know you're saying this too, right? Like, look, I'm tracking the whole time. Like, it's got to be safe when the session ends.
Right. And that's that's what I'm talking about in terms of the messiness, is like, as soon as the session ends, if they go back to having no safety and feeling like, no, we can only be this way in therapy, and outside of therapy, we're going to continue to talk to each other in this way that is really triggering and do the same moves that we've been doing that get us really escalated into this cycle, they're not going to get anywhere.
Exactly. Exactly. So let me so let's just say here's how I would, let me just think through this. If I had a couple in front of me and one of them has been really traumatized because they were on the receiving end of anger, violence, emotional, physical, and so now they get really scared when their husband is mad or angry in moments when they're experiencing trauma of not being heard, understood, right? Ideally, I'm going to be able to put it in the system and see how it's a system and it's both of them first. And that's going to seem insane to someone that lives in a world that just anger is not acceptable and I can't accept. Like, there's just no way. I've been so hurt around it. There is no way you could tell me angry reactions like that. I should be empathetic to that more than I should protect myself, right? So I'm probably going to learn very quickly. In my ideal world, we'd be able to create the safety that we could study the system. I just discovered we can't study the system. So now I'm going to have to get the buy-in, subtly, of the partner that is Mr. Angry Pants in their spouse's mind, that I'm going to have to just dive deeply into being with, supporting, validating, empathizing with the little girl, the big one, that this is just not acceptable. Accept them, validate them. And by doing that well enough, I'll get to meet the little girl that's still terrified living in their dad's house.
Right.
She's still fucking living in the dad's house. She never left. And I'm going to get to be there and not validate the reactive one. This is not acceptable. There's no way it's acceptable. I need to say my no. And then I'll get to be with the little girl eventually because I'll have earned the right to be with her, which I wasn't earning when I'm trying to do the cycle, because it's just like, are you crazy? You're asking me to take more of what I took as a kid when now I'm a grown-up and I can say no. So I'm going, okay, cannot do the cycle right now. I got to dive deeply in with them and validate their reactive part, their negative judgment. This is so unacceptable. And then I'll get to talk to the little girl in her little cubbyhole where she stays safe. And I'll get to love her and care for her and validate her. Now, if no is still what she needs to say, I will support her and I will help her say no. And I'll help the other partner hear it. Because now that's what needs to emerge. And that is what needed to emerge organically.
Right.
Right? Yeah. I will be full in on helping, because this is clearly what needs to happen. This person needs to say no. Right? This has to happen. They have to say no, and this person needs to hear it. I'm going to help that person really hear it and empathize and love them and care for them. I'm going to try and walk them through that process. But there is this other possibility then, that once we go through that process, that and they can share vulnerably, I just get really scared, that they no longer need to say no.
Right.
Or on the other side of saying no, this is a crazy thing. Like sometimes when you say no to something, now that I've said no to something, I couldn't find my yes until I've said my no.
Exactly.
So look, either way, I agree with you 1,000%, Karen, that I am going to support that person saying their no. Maybe the slight difference than I see with most therapists, that I'm holding up a little circle. I see supporting someone say their no as just this small little circle inside of a much bigger circle. And that bigger circle is, we're saying you no so that we can live in this bigger circle of I could be in a connected, safe relationship. And maybe even with this particular person, assuming you're not actually under, there's domestic violence or coercion, right? So, yeah, what was that like, Karen, to hear?
Absolutely. No, I think you're 100% right. And I like that idea of being able to say your no and then allowing what's on the other side of that. Because maybe on the other side of that, there's space for something else.
Exactly. You know, and I have this gesture I do with couples when they break up with me. I look at my watch, right? Because it's okay. So with Market, we just moved into a new emotional world with each other. We were together, but not sure. And we just moved into we are not together. So, okay, 1:43 p.m. Pacific time. And let's see what it's like to breathe this air and live in this air. It might be exactly what you expected, and it may not.
Yeah.
We'll see what it actually is like. Right. And so then this is the weird thing. Often people are like, well, we broke up, it's over. And I said, look, I'll see you next week. Let's see what it's actually like now that we're not together. Right. Now that I've said our no, let's see what it's like now.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Assuming it's not domestic violence or coercion and all these things. I always want to be, again, look, this is the tough part. Like, we want to be very careful. Trust your perspective if you're being really hurt, right? And at the same time, hopefully you can hold this nuanced point of view. We're also not necessarily trustworthy as human beings as understanding what's happening because our past is coloring how we're experiencing the present. And the same is true of your partner. And of course, anytime you get advice from someone, their past is coloring the advice they give you.
Right.
And so what really frustrates me as a couples therapist, what I see, it is much easier for therapists to support people's no, ask for your needs to be met. You deserve your needs to be met. If your needs aren't being met, you say no, right? That is such an, dude, everybody will love me forever if I do that, right? But we're not going to make their life better. Mm-hmm. So it's tricky to say, hey, listen, I hear you and I support your no, but I just want to, like, are you okay just for a second? Are you sure some of what you're like, this isn't more the past than the present? Don't shoot me. I'm not sure if you're fully trustworthy. Like, what you're experiencing right now isn't happening. Like, are you sure? Like, I know, like, your house burnt down as a kid and it looks to you like your house is burning down right now. Don't get me wrong. I see smoke. I don't see a house burning down. Don't shoot me. Is it worth at least exploring? It doesn't appear the house is burning right now. I think you're still experiencing the burnt house from childhood. Like, both people, right?
Yeah.
Like, yes, doing that with people takes courage because it's not what people want to do.
Totally. It's not what people want to do. And also, I think that, there's also some place in the middle there where maybe you've been working with a couple for a long time and they've been trying to get through the injuries that have occurred in their relationship that they can't get over, the attachment injuries, and they've been working through it. And you've done a lot of work with the childhood wounds of both parties. And they ultimately come to a place where one of them says, I need a break. I need to say I'm done, at least for now.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like, look, we got to, wow, what wonderful clarity, right? I mean, like if someone says that after we've explored all this and we've learned all this, and what a trustworthy no.
Yeah.
Right. That's my thing. Now, that's a no I trust completely, because not only was it, look, from my perspective, this is no, it's unacceptable, but now I also like really studied myself, how much of my past is merging with the present. I understand what's happening for you. And it's not for me.
And it might not even be that it's unacceptable. Might not even be like you're blaming the other. It might be just like, I can't open my heart to you anymore. It's just been too bad.
Absolutely. But what a trustworthy for both people, like, see, that's why I'm always like, the best place to know whether it's a yes or a no is do this work. Exactly. But my God, right? Like the work may be outside one or both people's window of tolerance. And that the skill of our work is to just see if we can keep them inside, like we can expand the window of tolerance so that we can do the work.
For anybody that might not know, because that is kind of like
like psychobabble,
psycholingo,
the window of tolerance.
Just say what that is.
Well, so being inside the window of tolerance, if you just imagine a scale, right, and on the, let's say, the left-hand side of the scale here, right, is I'm overregulated, right, and I can't be present to what's happening because it's outside. What's happening is so outside my window of tolerance that I have to overregulate and kind of dissociate and disappear. And then the window of tolerance, so let's say 0 to 5 is like I have to disappear, and some people that's what they do when what's happening in the present moment is outside their window of tolerance. And so I'd say like, 5 to 10 is I'm inside my window tolerance. What's happening is difficult, but I can stay present to it and be here and differentiate between the past and the present to some degree, right? And let's say then the other 10 to 15 on the scale is, oh my God, what's happening is too much and I have to under-regulate. I get angry, I shout, I yell, like, I stub my toe, I bite my own toenail, which I can't do. Because I'm
Really?
inflexible. No, I wish, right? But oh my God, you can still do that. That's like so. I've become super inflexible.
I could brush my hair
right?
with my feet.
Oh my God, that's amazing. You're like the Daniel Day-Lewis of therapists, or the Christy Moore. Remember that, My Left Foot?
Oh,
Anyway, so look, we want, as a therapist, one of the big skills of the therapist, besides what we're doing, like that's obvious, is we're trying to keep people in that 5 to 10 range. Like, and usually one member of a couple is dissociating. Is that a shiny ball over there? Because that's what they have to do because they can't tolerate it. And the other person is, I'm losing my fucking mind. Right. And we're trying to get both of them inside. So one is like between 0 to 5 and the other is between 10 to 15 when they're both traumatized. And we're trying to see, could we explore this inside of like 5 to 10, right? Where you're both here and it is activating, but not so much that you have to exit in the way you exit, right?
yeah.
And look, some people, because they experience so much trauma and some relationships are so traumatizing, we just can't do the exploration inside of that window of tolerance, right?
Yeah.
But I'm going to do my best to get them inside it. But if it's too dangerous that they could hurt themselves and each other, there's no way I'm going to try and I'm not going to keep trying. We got to get them in individual therapy or like, don't be, you just like, you can't do it. But if it's just they're really traumatized from the past, I just believe the ultimate thing that's going to heal them is they're going to be with a primary person again. And it looked like there was no way for me to be safe, and I'm safe now. It looked like there was no way for me to be seen, but I'm seen now. Like, there's just so much good as possible if we can navigate that unbelievably messy, difficult path.
Yeah,
together.
Exactly. And I think it just requires some degree of trust from the couple and the therapist that they can help you to do it, and that it's going to take some time. It doesn't happen overnight.
Exactly. And that's where, like, in this particular case, right, and I know they'll listen to the podcast. I probably should have seen earlier, but, I could see now, I got to go get that little girl.
Yeah.
Right? She's really now, oh my God, this process you're doing is going to lead me to be more hurt.
Yeah.
Like, so I've lost her, at this moment, I've lost her trust that this could be a good thing. Right now, it just looks like this is going to get me more hurt, right?
Right.
So I got to, maybe she's right, right? Firstly, that's really important. I got to hear, tell me, I believe you, tell me. And then maybe I could earn her trust if it should be trusted, so that we could keep trying and seeing if we could make this work.
Right, because there's some part of her that's saying to you, hey, I don't feel safe. I don't feel safe here.
Exactly. And needs to be really, hey, stop the lights. Stop filming, right? It's not like we're filming this, but like, right, we got to address this before we move forward, right? Absolutely. This is the thing we have to work on. And if at the end of that, like you got to support me, say no, like, it's not my favorite thing to do, but I got to put on my big boy pants and help someone say no to their spouse and help the spouse hear it. And again, that's an over and over again thing too, right? It's not like, it's not pleasant, but that's what needs to happen for these people. That's what needs to happen.
Yeah. Cool.
How much fun we have. As therapists, right? But I think that's good. That's a good exploration. I'm trying to think that we'd leave anything out.
No, I think we did. I think that was great. Yeah. I'm a little distracted thinking about how I know that the image that Steph is going to create for this podcast is going to be me doing this.
Your foot in your mouth.
She's always looking for like a really like dramatic gesture.
Exactly. Yeah, that was a mistake. That's definitely the thumbnail is your foot in your mouth.
Maybe I should make a better one. Me actually.
Wait.
I
Oh
know.
my God. I mean, come on. Like if I tried to do that, I'd be in surgery for a hip replacement. That's very impressive. By the way, Karen is holding her foot above her head for the listeners. But look, good, yeah, good podcast. I mean, for us, I don't know about for the listeners, but I enjoyed it. Thank you, Karen.
Yeah, I think it's good I think that's a really good question that you
It is a great
brought.
question. Yeah,
And it's one that's really important for us as therapists to keep in mind, and to keep in mind that it's a struggle for clients when they're in a situation that feels really intense, that takes them out of their window of tolerance a lot of the time. At what point
exactly.
do I
Yeah.
say a no, and is it possible to say a no and then still actually find a way to move forward in the relationship?
Exactly. And I definitely think there is in theory, and then every individual case is unique.
Yeah.
Right. In theory, absolutely. In fact, sometimes I run experiments where people let's practice saying no. Let's make it as real as possible, right? And but anyway, look, let's sign off. Let's not start doing our psychobabble again. And thank you, listeners, viewers. To be continued.
To be continued.